Hello everyone, my name is Boris, and today I'm doing a WOD review of Dishsoap, who was playing some scrims preparing for the next patch. And it's definitely always interesting to see these kind of lobbies where we have people from different regions playing against each other, as we do not get to see that as often. We are playing in the Silver Scrapes encounter, aka oh shit it's this encounter, once you make it to the top 2. We start out with already a Scion drop, so could consider potentially unlocking a LeBlanc. And we are also... Have we checked our Void mod? I'm not sure. However, we are going to tag in Slayers, as we could potentially consider also playing around that Rek'Sai. Going to opt to sell it instead. The shops have not indicated us a clear direction really yet. We could pick up the Ash and potentially also unlock a Tryndamere, since now with the unlock changes you will also only need to slam one item on it, which is quite neat. You do not have to commit, and we're gonna go for that. Tossing a sword on there. Coming up in the augment, risky moves is generally considered to be underpowered, especially with the stage 3 damage changes. You would be probably losing first 2 rounds in stage 3, taking even more damage, and we do not have a strong board to play off from it, plus the gold you gain is quite low. Patience is a virtue, again, is not something that we would generally wish to play from a super weak board, and at this stage, we're not sure if there are any loose streak lines that could capitalize from it. Therefore, we're gonna default Flowing Tears, I would assume. Yes, we do. And well, Table Scraps and the other Carousel augment as well. Table Scraps in itself is something that we could consider. However, again, this is not immediate power. When the Flowing Tears, we are able to immediately put an item here on Scion, while Efficient Shopper is something that you can take from a loose streak spot and potentially go for the 3 costs of the Carousel or any other higher cost unit to simply increase your econ, and it works generally in comps that can use multiple of different components. However, with the Flowing Tears, we're able to unlock a LeBlanc here. Unfortunately, a turn late, however, we should be able to get us the stacking Manas Consumed going, and if you're able to find an Invoker, this is gonna accelerate this a little bit even more. As we can see, there are people still leaning into the emblem augments, as the emblems did not get changed, so we could expect them to still to be quite strong, especially in the early game, as they're essentially functioning as an additional item. Now, do we gonna opt here to go make a 30, since we are unfortunately still on the lose streak? I would assume not, since we do want to have sufficient frontline to be able to get as many casts possible and start stacking up our Flowing Tears to be able to cash out. Generally, these item augments at the moment, the silver tier ones, where you get 2 extra components of the sword later on, are they're a little behind on tempo if you're not able to capitalize on them very fast. And there are not that many spots where you can do. We are offered a pan, we could take it, yes, because as we know we're going to have a couple of tiers incoming, we can just use that tier to make into an Invoker emblem, and that could potentially open us to play some sort of a forward Invoker board. However, unfortunately, we still have not managed to 2-star anything on our board, which is quite unfortunate. Scouting around, there seems to be, at least I noticed one player playing with the Leona. For those who are unaware, Asol is no longer in the meme tier. There have been scrims where it's 3 and 4 ways contested due to the recent changes. Hence, I would be expecting there to be an A patch coming around with Asol, as he is very, very strong at the moment. Now, we're going to level to tag in an Ahri here, since we won and trying to play for the 2 streak. Never mind, we're gonna toss the Ahri up, gonna grab on, hold on to a Yasuo pair. Now, perhaps I missed if we check the Ionia. We're gonna see that. Going up against the Zoe and Leona board, definitely something that could be considered into an Asol angle. Nicely be able to pick up a win and then in a 2 streak here. Well read by Dishsoap, it's necessary to level. We high roll a Wukong of that as well, which definitely is going to help our frontline and Zoe in general again receiving more buffs, even though before I would consider her to be a decent AP item holder. However, it's simply underplayed as things like LeBlanc are stronger. Get a drop to Leona ourselves. Gonna hold on to it as Leona is still a decent tank. However, I doubt that we're going to be playing into ALE, so knowing Dishsoap, if he knows the line is not going to make itself onto the live, he's better going to use the time to practice. I'm going to opt to slam a Morello, as unfortunately we do not have any way to make a sufficient tank item. Leaving the bow open is probably going to transition into something like a Void Staff, and then as I mentioned, the second tier could become a Invoker emblem, so we can play around an open glove for a tank slot. Coming on the next augment, Recombobulator. We're not in a spot, I believe, to take it. We do not have anything 2-starred, and even though we have some 3-cost units, the 4-cost we're gonna get are not gonna be anything great. Boxing lessons is generally something good for a full frontline, like a melee comp, something like an Echo. We are leaning into this Invoker angle, so probably not. Best friends, you would need to take a brief look around the lobby to see if it's somewhat AD dominant. But it's something that I would be defaulting for now, as is in general decent combat option. Lunch money is do not take any under any circumstances. Celestial Blessing also did not play into it, so we're going to just take the item grab bag. Unfortunately, it gives us a tank item. However, perhaps the worst tank item we could have gotten is Spectrum, maybe like an Event Shroud, as we already have slammed the Morello, and this is the downside of this augment. I'm pretty sure Bishop was not satisfied with the picks that he was being offered, as if he had rolled an AD item, then that again does not fit in our game plan. I'm generally neither a fan of this augment myself. Still, we have... our board is not looking particularly amazing. However, the lobby... yeah, now the lobby is spiking. You can see there's someone trying around again the Tryndamere reroll, with Ashe and Tryndamere having received some of the buffs. Perhaps the comp is being able to get back into the meta. However, LeBlanc is still LeBlanc. She was not touched, and in my opinion, she's still functioning as more as a 3.5 cost unit. Very, very strong, especially once you can 2-star her. It's something you could perhaps consider to moving to level 9 with. We're going to be able to pick up a Swain here, which is going to fit us nicely, and gives us another tier that allows us to immediately slam the Void Staff, I would presume, or the Invoker emblem. That works as well. That allows us to slot in 2 Zoes, and it's going to allow us to get to the 4 Invoker spike quicker. Going to opt to go for an aggressive level here, even though we're not on a streak. I presume it's in the form of securing sort of wins and perhaps also dealing more damage to this Ishtal player. We do get an Annie high roll. Now, Annie did receive her mana buffs, and it's something that I think could work quite well with the Invoker emblem. However, we do have double anti-heal, which is okay, maybe not the worst thing since you get early anti-heal. However, once this effect goes out, it's a little sus. But let's see if we're going to be able to play around this Annie and perhaps be able to somehow later on reforge these items. If not, then certainly slightly suboptimal, but at least you're able to get the anti-heal off right away. And in general, just because you have something like a Sunfire, you should not fret from playing around Annie, as Sunfire, it's in itself is a good early game slam. Going to be able to unlock a Kuboko here with the way we slotted in our team, and able to now drop down to 2 Invoker. Going to reforge the Sunfire, stick on the Morello for now. Interestingly, slam our items, as we have a lot of removers. I assume he believed that this is going to allow him to secure a win. As you can see already, Annie Van is doing quite good damage, but let's see if she's be able to stall enough for her later on. Cash out our tiers, one becomes a wow. For our augments, I believe our econ situation is still in the worst spot, so it's nice to see a couple of econ options being offered. Crash Test Dummies also recently got buffed, and this could be something good for the stall comps. However, we have some frontline sorted right now, and I believe that what could hold us back right now is the ability to not able hit our board. And therefore we opt to go for 3s, as it's a good augment if you're in need of raw gold. Plus, we highroll Abilio, so we have a 2-star Invoker we can play. And Ari perhaps could do some work as well. It allows us to attack in Arcanist. And she is still a very good unit. I believe she's being slept on by some people. RE2 can definitely do some work, especially in stage 4. And if it's the stacking Aeonia, then she definitely rises in power in the later games. We already have the Wukong, so might as well. See, Echo reroll player as well. The Tryndamere player has fallen out from the tempo, and they appear to be still quite far away, so we might not get as great of a read on Tryndamere from this game. But nicely, we are able to string together a 6 streak, which partially is due to the high roll Annie, but also by recognizing the spot before that when we leveled to level 7, it was purely enabled from the aggressive level. Has enabled us to string together a win streak here, then being able to figure out that, yeah, this Ari is good enough also to be a secondary item holder right now, and we have quite a strong board, apart from slightly having a weaker front line. I'm going to pick up a rod here to maybe perhaps create a little more damage items. We do see an ASOL player right there. And this appears to be an Ishtal player playing around Lysandra. I myself prefer to play around Seraphine in this line, as she just seems a little bit more consistent. However, if you do high roll something like a Zillion, then definitely is an out. And in these spots where Ishtal in general requiring quite a bit of gold, you want to play with as little gold investment as you can for as long as you can. See, we are attempting to assume position around the ASOL player, perhaps to not be able to jump on our Annie, as that is one of the harder matchups, at least it was before, for the Annie when Diana was in a meta, that Diana could just simply assassinate your Annie, especially in a 1-star, as she has such a little of an HP pool. We opt to slot in Yordles and Aeonia, which I assume we're going to go for a cannon unlock. Also positioning in a way to unlock set. Gotta get the sets. And I assume that's going to be... No, okay, we're gonna go for the set now. Opt to drop the Noxus package, as the 3 Noxus Arcan is not really a sufficient frontline for us right now. I assume this is going to become a Rage Blade and a Gargoyles, as Gargoyles can go on the Wukong. And he is our strongest frontliner. And a decent user of the item. Leveling to 9, which is more expensive, hence why we also definitely wanted to pick up some more econ on the 4-2. Picking up a Shyvana to further delay the backline damage dealers. To stall for our frontline as much as we can. And this Invoker Annie is just still pumping in a lot of work. Unfortunately, it gets stuck on the Swain 2 here, but now that we have the Senna online as well, we have the follow-up damage, and the burn just keeps tickling down the ASOL. Find a Shyvana 2 now, and a Senna 2. Going to Okay, we're going to sell one of our Wukongs and yeah, simply going to transition for the Tibbers carry. As 2-star Tibbers still, if for those who remember from early set, it is a menace of a tank. It's at times I personally would have been considering just playing Tibbers if I could as a tank unit without the Annie, as Annie does require specific kind of itemization in a way that just allows you to pump out as much mana as you can on her. However, now that we have picked up a 2-star Tibbers, also Tibbers very well using the Gargoyles and the Steadfast, we have great items, and we see there's another Annie player in the lobby as well. We have some sort of also a Seraphine flex board. This is another one of those I believe to be unexplored areas in the game. As playing around 2 Pluto or Seraphine, there's just so many ways and so there's just so much you can do that I believe even the top players have admitted that if Seraphine is a great carry, you can flex your rolldowns, and it's very, very hard to figure out in every case what the optimal path is. I'm going to swap some itemization around just to enable to distribute more mana generation on the Ari itself so that she can scale up and start doing a little bit more damage. Going against the Shadow Isles board, which is not able to get through our front line, and we've secured a spot in our top 3 as well. This is a very, very interesting board Dishsoap has managed to put together. It's playing around the 4 Arcanist core and tagging in the Ionia, and in case you had a Arcanist emblem, you could also consider putting that on something like a set and perhaps dropping something. However, I'm not sure what you would be even dropping here. Then you perhaps could play instead for 6 Arcanist board. And the Invoker emblem simply nicely ties in with the Kabuko onto the Wukong with Bruisers. Going up against the Demacia board, the pretty much standard Demacia with 2-star Kaisa and playing around the Vayne carry, so I would assume that we just simply outcap this board from YBY. 1. Also able to pick up some of our last upgrades. Swain being highly contested, it's no surprise that we get it so late. And also, yeah, it seems Shadow Isles performing quite well with the recent rush buffs. Have managed to make their way into top 3. We do have a Blast Whisper. I'm not sure how I caught it when we arrived to that. However, we opt to keep it on Ari rather than the Senna. I'm myself not quite sure. And right, yeah, this is the encounter. We're simply checking the other player to see if, in case that we have to watch out for any 3-star forecast. However, it appeared to not be so. So we're just going to look for a Fiddle 2, get a Fiddle 2, which will be able to further stall. And I believe that we simply outcap this comp. It looks like it appears that they're still on Galio 1 even. So despite having a couple of declaws, we just simply have too much damage coming in from the Annie. And definitely, Annie seems to be a prominent threat in the coming patch if you have spot for play for it. If you are stuck on Annie, one is going to be quite slow. However, Dishsoap playing very well from the tempo spot, being able to get to it, and recognizing the necessary for the extra econ with the level changes, manages to secure first. I would like to thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed and learned something new the same way as I did. I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.